back, everybody, to another episode of the Nonprofit Show. We have our favorite, a hacker's on. What? We were supposed to have Michael Nouguier on, partner of Cybersecurity Services at Richey May. This is the reality of being hacked, huh?
Yeah, this is assuming somebody else's identity, right?
Well, then this is why we need to have this discussion about pen testing and what it looks like and understanding cybercrime vulnerability. So we'll wait for Michael Nouguier to come on while we thank our partners, Bloomerang American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, JMT Consulting, Interim Executives Academy, Your Part-Time Controller, and Fundraisers Friday. I'm Julia C. Patrick, CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy. Super shocked to welcome Michael Nouguier, partner at Cybersecurity. There he is. He's back. Okay. I love that you showed up this way, but I think, Michael, it speaks to the issue of cybersecurity and crime and these things that we don't even want to talk about. And we are thrilled that you are here to talk about it. So thank you and welcome back.
Absolutely. Happy to be back, Julia.
Well, we're going to get right into it. And what is a pen test? I mean, we have it here as two words. Sometimes it's one word. Sometimes it's penetration testing. What the heck is this?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a common cybersecurity service performed at your organization, nonprofit or any other organization alike, that tests for security weaknesses across every aspect of your organization. And the reason I wore my disguise today to fool everybody into thinking I was somebody different is because part of that is assuming other identities, pretending to be other people, social engineering, and phishing. I'm going to take these off so that I can breathe a little better through them, but much better. I think to answer the question of what is a pen test, it's really performing a real life simulation of hacking, to boil it up, against your organization to find where those security weaknesses lie, performing the same thing that cyber attackers are going to do against your network so that you don't get hit by those. You uncover them under the protection of an ethical hacker to make sure that you are identifying these weaknesses and covering those gaps before somebody else does and performs something negative against your network or your application or your email or whatever it may be.
Wow. You know, we were talking in the green room until I met you. As much as we talk about cybersecurity and we get our hair on fire about it, as we should, I hadn't really had anyone bring this up other than you. And I mean, we know the word hacking and hackathons, and, you know, we kind of apply that a little loosely, but I find this is just really an important and strategic approach to cyber protection.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different analogies around what you want to understand when it comes to pen testing, right? When you buy a new house, right? You don't just buy it sight unseen. You hire an inspector to come in and poke and prod and make sure that nothing's broken or that things were performed correctly and under code. And it's the same concept with a pen test, right? You want a cyber ninja, if you will, somebody that is ethical in nature, right? And there's even certifications to confirm that they are an ethical hacker to come in and test your email, your network, your applications, whatever it is, to understand that none of those glaring weaknesses exist. That if somebody were to send you a phishing email and you were to click a link and they got your credentials, that they weren't going to be able to do anything else. We're trying to limit the blast radius as well of what could happen in a cyber attack.
So I really appreciate that you kind of gave us some ideas. I mean, you mentioned email, your website, you know, client information, donor information.
Right.
There's not just one thing, right? I mean, you've got platforms that you're working with. So what is involved with this? Like, how do we even begin to think about, okay, we now get the concept, we got to invest in this. How do we go about it?
Yeah, it all comes down to scoping and really talking to a professional like the team at Richey May Cybersecurity of what your organization, what technology encompasses your organization, what your organization involves, where you're storing data, the third parties that you're leveraging. Do you have websites, applications, things that across all these things? Everybody has email, right? We're not existing without email, and so that's always one area to start, right? Are you in the cloud? Are you on prem? And so we want to make sure to scope it out to understand the true nature of what you need to test, right? And that's starting point, right? From there, assuming the scope looks great, we want to then start doing open source intelligence gathering. We call it OSINT in the industry, open source OSINT intelligence gathering, so OSINT. And that's just doing our reconnaissance. Like what can we find that anybody else in the world can find just by doing some Google searches, by poking and prodding through websites, things along those lines? Is there anything that can help us build a greater attack path or a greater story for how your organization will be attacked? Because we're going to do the same thing that the bad guys are going to do, right? We're going to look for all this data, and if we find something, we're going to let you know about it and explain the whole point there. And so during that reconnaissance phase, when we find something, right, we use that to then drive towards exploitation. We want to exploit what we find. Is there an open is there a computer that we can publicly access? Did we send a phishing email and it got through and somebody clicked it and now we have credentials, right? And so we're building this exploitation path to find those weaknesses. And then once we have exploited some of those weaknesses, we want to see what happens afterwards. And we call that post-exploitation, where we have gotten a foothold and now we're going to see what makes sense, right? We got into your email and now we're going to see if we can get into donor data, find credit card numbers, find bank accounts, find sensitive information, because all of those things impact an organization and help build whether it's a ransomware type situation where we have your data and you have to pay to get it back, something along those lines. Now, we're not going to ransom as a part of a pen test. We want to make sure that we show you what we were able to uncover so that you can cover that so that you don't get ransomed. And then the final stage is reporting, right? We give you a report. We talk you through those things, and we want to give you actionable reports. So here are the weaknesses, and here's what we would recommend to fix those weaknesses, right? It might be turning off certain features. It might be implementing new softwares. There's a lot of different aspects to it. And so we usually wait 30 to 90 days after that to give organizations time to fix those. And then we come back in and retest and say, great, we can't do this anymore. You have successfully kept these people out. And so it is a real proactive solution. It's actually required under cyber insurance and a lot of other things. We'll talk about that later, to perform these things so that you are being proactive through your cybersecurity measures.
It's absolutely fascinating, because the last time we had you on the nonprofit show, we spoke about these third-party platforms that nonprofits are partnering with, because frankly, it's just so much cheaper than to try and figure this all out yourself. And this is everything from client management software, and that sometimes can involve medical issues and HIPAA and legal issues that are really intense. It can involve donor data. It can involve things like how we collect donations, right?
Payment card information. Yeah. PCI is a very regulated industry. So yeah.
Yeah. It's so, I almost want to use the word vast, right? So how would you recommend that we do this when we are using third-party software? And it could be pretty something simple as like a CRM, or it could be something much more, sophisticated. I'm thinking about, like accounting software and the accounting platforms that then tag into our donor relations. How do we go about that when we have all these different layers?
Yeah, vast is a great word to use for that, because it is, right? And you can only test what you control and what you own. So when you're leveraging third parties, it's important to make sure that before contracting with them, or even during contracting, you're making sure that they're performing penetration testing and they're providing you with some sort of letter of attestation or the results if they will do that, so that you can verify that they are doing what needs to be done to protect your data in their platforms. And then through your organization, if you're leveraging a financial management software like a QuickBooks or something along those lines, right? That comes into scope, right? We don't want to test your financial software, but we want to test that we can't get to it. We can't log into it. We can't pull data out of it. And so those come into the scope from that perspective. So it's really understanding what you own and what you can test, and then doing the due diligence against the people that those third parties that you're leveraging, and making sure that they're doing what they need to do.
Wow, you've like blown my mind, because this is like so much more strategic and in depth than I would have ever thought. But then if you have an incursion and you have a problem, that means you probably are having to try. I can see why people haven't figured this out.
Yeah.
You mentioned this a long time ago to me, that a lot of times people have an incursion and it takes them a hell of a long time to figure it out that they've even had an attack. And so I can kind of see now why that happens, right? Because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, I think you're referring to the statistic that, and back when we had talked about this a long time ago, it was 280 days before you identify that you've even been breached. And most people find out after they're breached that they've been breached, right? Like you get a ransom letter or somebody notifies you and says, hey, I found my information from you guys out on the dark web or something along those lines.
Right.
And so, right, that we have started to truncate that in the industry. It's still over 200 days or so before people find out. But this is one of those things that you do to truncate it in your organization, right? You do this testing because if you are starting to cover those gaps, right? If you do an inspection on your home and you find out that you don't even have door handles on your front door, it's really easy for somebody to walk in the front door. Right. And so having somebody come in to identify that and show you how to fix that. Oh, you have to install this. You have to put a door lock in, a deadbolt with the key so that only you can get in. Those types of items are really what we're there to show you. And it's not a one-time thing either, right? It's something that like your organization and everything you have changes on a monthly basis, on an annual basis, right? You're adding new technologies, you're performing updates. Every update you perform introduces the potential for new weaknesses inside of your environment. Every change you perform has the potential of introducing new weaknesses. So it's important to do this periodically to understand, right? The same reason you go to the doctor and do blood tests, right? Like things change, things happen, and you want to make sure you're on top of those, right? You don't want to find out too late about something that's gone wrong. And so that's where pen testing is really that annual checkup of your organization's technology stack to make sure that it is protected and that you are protected.
Yeah. Well, and Michael, you bring up something that's really interesting, because the push is on in the nonprofit sector to advance up our tech stack and grow it, and not be so reticent and leaning into this. So we see a lot of nonprofits for the first time really investing in technology and all that comes with it. And so I'm fascinated that you've added this one layer that we need to be thinking about, and that we're not talking about it. So let's move on to the next aspect of this, because what is it going to cost? I mean, how do we even figure out that we need somebody to do this for us or with us? What should we be thinking about? I mean, so many nonprofits right now, as you and I speak, they're working on their budgets. They're working on some of these things that they're going to have to fund. Help us to understand what this might look like.
Yeah, and the answer is it depends. It depends on the scoping that we talked about before. They can be super budget friendly to astronomical in size, depending on what you are providing, right? If you are collecting HIPAA data, PCI data, even a lot of the nonprofit plays in the judicial space, like CJIS data, very protected, very regulated information. You are required to do pen testing, and they specify across a lot of different federal regulators and even state regulators what those pen tests need to look for. That changes the amount of time you have to spend. Realistically, what it costs is how much time you want to spend on it, right? If you want to spend 3 days on a pen test, it's a lot less expensive, but you also don't get the same benefit of all of that research that goes into the organization. And so it's not one size fits all.
Right.
And there are, introductory pen tests. There's external, internal, remote, on-site, application, social engineering. There's a whole slew of things that need to be done. And I think it's really just talking to, a trusted advisor, somebody that understands the nonprofit industry, but also understands what these engagements need to look like, and really driving from there what an engagement like this might look like. There are some potential cost savings that come from it. One, you're not going to get breached usually by these routes, right? Like, it helps lower the cost of a breach. And there are statistics on this from like IBM. They work with the Ponemon Institute every year and do the cost of a data breach. Can lower the cost of a breach by $200,000+ just because you've understood what proactive security from that perspective. Insurance costs go down, right? And then also there's the investment into growth that this becomes, where what we like to talk about is, right, cybersecurity is often viewed as a cost center or an expense rather than a business enabler, right? Having a penetration test and going into donor arenas, going into donor events, going to all these other things, and being able to say, like, we've done our proactive security right. And so we're not just a nonprofit that performs X, Y, and Z for our constituents, but we're also a secure nonprofit. So you can trust us with your data as we are driving towards our mission to do whatever our mission is. And so, the cost range could start from, $1,000 and go all the way up to hundreds and thousands of dollars, depending on size of organization and scope, like we talked about. So to give you some tangible numbers in that.
I think one of the things that's really interesting that you talked about, and I've got to believe that there are a lot of organizations that haven't even thought of this, is the contractual obligation that you need to maintain or conduct this type of pen testing if you are engaging with certain types of contractors. Like, you mentioned the justice system, healthcare, anything that has to do with really sensitive information. Certainly we're talking about children and minors. There are a lot of these things that are built in, and yet maybe not realized at the time you enter into some type of contracting engagement.
Yeah, people may be agreeing to contracts without even truly understanding that they have to perform this.
Yeah.
I've worked with umpteen hospitals in my day, and I know that a lot of nonprofits work alongside hospitals. A lot of the contracts that we get are requiring these security programs that include annual penetration testing, and we have to provide an attestation that we do it annually to work with these. And so it would not strike me if these are coming up inside of contracts for the nonprofit arena, and especially in like the medical industry, and even in the some of the more regulated industries as well.
Yeah. So let's dig into that a little bit, because you mentioned it's almost, I see it in my mind like the certificate of insurance. When you're going to go on offsite and you're going to do something, that your carrier or that the contracting facility, your partner will require that certificate of insurance, or that attestation, as you mentioned. What does some of these reports, what do they look like, and how are we having to provide that backup data that we have engaged in this?
Yeah, I think, I brought up the analogy that like doing a pen test is like getting a physical annually, kind of, right? You don't necessarily want to take your blood test results and hand those out to just random people. And so
Yeah.
that report that you're getting from a penetration test it's an intimate report. It's telling you areas of weakness that you may not want to share with everybody, but you're getting this to fix those. And so that report is yours to run and drive and fix. But every engagement should come with like a letter of attestation or a letter of assessment. We call ours a letter of assessment, which basically states that we tested you from this period to this period on a particular scope for X amount of days, and we found these results. And like by these results, like critical, a couple high, a couple medium. Like we classify results based on priority and severity. And then, we say, after 90 days, we went back and retested and all of those were fixed. And so it's a great report to hand out if you're fixing everything, right? It's to say, right. I've completed all these things. Here's a report, an independent, disinterested third party identified for us, and we were able to complete. So.
Wow. This is like so fascinating because I've got to believe, especially with the insurance piece of this, and more organizations looking to their risk management and saying, how do we add this on? I've got to believe there are going to be a lot of nonprofits that are kind of shocked about the whole concept of pen testing and that's being pulled back through. Because even with you talking about the change of insurance and regulations around cybersecurity, it's not a given that you're going to be able to just add this onto your policy.
Yeah, you might not. Insurance may increase your rates or even choose to deny you if you're not doing these things.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's important to understand that. Like, and it is, a lot of times based on the size and risk of an organization, right? Insurance is focused heavily on risk. And so this is one of those things that reduces risk so much that we've seen denials because people won't do pen testing, or they'll have to do it last second. And what we know about anything is that the longer you wait to do it, the more expensive they tend to become. And so it's one of those things that proactively following this and then driving it back into your insurance and saying, we got a pen test and here it is, and we fixed everything. And we'd like to see our rate go down is something that's not uncommon to do in the cyber insurance realm. So.
I'm fascinated by this. I'm really interested in the whole concept and then how we as a sector look at engaging it and then understanding it. I think It's absolutely riveting that you would do something like this and then you do it a second time with a follow-up to say, what did we learn? What did we fix? Your scoring piece of it. It's not a one and done. And then if you're cycling back through, you're adding platforms, adding people, your business is changing, whatever, all of the above.
Yeah.
You got to turn around and do this within the next 12 months, it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. It's not uncommon to do that and to do penetration testing annually. We see it mostly in regulated industries where they do it at least annually. And it is one of those things that it's, hey, we need to do this again. Like, let's re-engage and start driving forward with this. And we get a lot of, organizations that come under regulation eventually. And they're like, hey, we've never done a pen test before. We need help understanding it. And like that conversation's free because it is important to understand what you're getting yourself into and not just, like I said, they're not one size fit all and not everybody performs them the same way. And so we follow standard methodologies and we want to make sure that things are being tested comprehensively and performed with the utmost experience and standards in the industry.
So we don't have a lot of time left. Let me ask you this kind of like bizarre question. And that is like, how much do you alert your staff and your team to this? I'm thinking about school fire drills and where they'll like tell the teachers, okay, teachers, we're going to do a fire drill on Tuesday at 10. And the teachers aren't really supposed to tell their kids or their students or their teams. Do you have something like that where you tell the C-suite, okay, we're going to be doing this? and be
Yeah,
on the lookout? Or how do you navigate that?
yeah. So it depends, right? On some like network pen testing. Typically, you inform those that need to be involved in it, and that's about where you stop, right? Like
Okay.
especially with like social engineering, if we're going to send out phishing emails and play the part of the bad guy and try and trick people into clicking links and whatnot, like if you inform them ahead of time, then everybody's going to be looking out for those, and that doesn't create a real world sample, right?
Right.
If people know it's coming at a specific time, they're going to keep an eye out. But that's what vigilance is, right? Like you will be attacked at every time throughout the day. There's no warning, and so warning your staff to these types of things is really, it creates insufficient results sometimes.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. I'm absolutely fascinated by this, and I am so appreciative that you brought it up. I think we're going to have more questions that come in about this because you kind of just like let us peek through the curtain, and it's just even with me here with you today on the Nonprofit Show, it just a swirl of questions have come up, and it's really an interesting conversation, and I'm just delighted that we would have you and the hacker that first came on. There we go. That evil hacker, Michael Nouguier. He's a partner with the cybersecurity section over at Richey May. Richey May is really an interesting company because it started out as an accounting services company, and Michael has really helped grow this part. Michael, I've got to believe that this was pushed forward by clients within Richey May having problems, and then it's not just the accounting division that's having problems, but these expenses and these things that come up. It's really fascinating to see how this side of your business has grown.
Yes, absolutely. It has been driven from the questions that come up, right? And you reach out to those that you trust, and so we tend to be trusted across our client base, and so we started building out services to align with what they're requesting. So
it's just riveting, and I wish we didn't have to have these conversations, but I'm so grateful that we can, so that we can start to arm our organizations to be more proactive. And especially, you said something that just chilled me to the bone, and I'll reiterate this again. There are probably a lot of organizations that have some contractual arrangement that's requiring this, or that wants this to be going on. And if you don't know about it and you haven't planned for it financially, intellectually, with an expert, you're not just out of compliance, you're injuring your organization possibly.
potentially, yeah.
Wow, just fascinating. Well, this has been a great conversation. You can learn more about Michael and his team and what they do at Richey, Richey, May.com. And you can learn all about what it is that they do and how they do it. We get to do this every day because we have amazing partners, and they include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, JMT Consulting, Interim Executives Academy, Your Part-Time Controller, and Fundraisers Friday. These are the folks that support us day in and day out. As we now march towards our 1,400th episode, 1,400 episodes. Whew, that's crazy. So we really want to say thank you to our sponsors. Okay, I'm really thinking about my own business situation and how we need to do a better job here on the Nonprofit Show and the American Nonprofit Academy. So thank you.
Yes. Welcome. Thank you.
I'm kind of thankful, but I'm like kind of not, because it's like a little stressful, but you pointed out some great things. So we need to work on that. Hey, everybody, as we end each and every episode, we like leaving with this message. And today I'm thinking about cybersecurity when I say it. And the message is this: to stay well so you can do well. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you again.